morning. It is Flow Chaser Monday, 6 a.m. here in the Pacific Northwest. We're just getting to it. I'll be presenting a theory on accessing the flow state. I feel like this is a great conversation to visit every single Monday as you go into your work week and try to find the reason, the reason that you show up, the reason that you're there, what this is ultimately doing, whether this job is like the job or this job is just a paycheck. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about creating more flow in your life, what that does. All right, I'll talk about this presentation and what's included. Like there is a plan, people, and a little bit about who I am just to back up like why I'm talking about flow, productivity, goal setting, all the things, right? And it really stems from the knowledge that I learned through burnout seasons and from observing other people come out of burnout, struggle with burnout, all the things, everything in between, right? But there's something about identifying what gets a person into the flow state as to identifying what burns a person out. So there is a lot of knowledge there. And then an extensive section of this 30 minutes will be about chasing flow as opposed to chasing goals and why that distinction matters. All right. This is a presentation that I've been doing every Monday in 2026, if you can believe it. And it's now August 10th. So I believe we're like 30 some plus into this year. And what it's done is it's really had me think about one topic and revisit it over and over again, improve the way that I'm able to communicate all these thoughts and ideas that I have. I felt like, how do I really showcase this like philosophical quality that I have to my optimism? And this is the best way that I've been able to do it. And so, yeah, I have nothing to sell you. This is just a personal exercise of mine that I'm doing in 2026 and about a 30-minute lecture that you are in for to really jazz you up about the work and the life that you are doing this week. A little bit about who I am. So, my name is Lacey. I've run a brand and web design business for the last 11 years. In August, it is 11 years. And I am somebody who I probably work for myself because I can't work for anybody else. I have very inconsistent energy patterns. I'm highly sensitive. So, it's like there's just, heavy sad vibes somewhere and I'm picking it up, and sometimes like just emotions and feelings come from inside my house. So it's just like I'm just riding the wave of emotions and energy levels most days. But with all that said, as like a personal quirk, I'm maybe what somebody would call like sensitive or highly sensitive. Like I am extremely goal driven, and like I set goals. I In my personal life or physical challenges is what's coming to mind now. Like productivity challenges, like all the things. I love setting professional goals, like do this, try this. I mean, this is an example of like a professional goal that I have, doing this presentation every Monday at 6 a.m. in 2026. Like there is a drive in me, and I think that kind of like sets it up to like why I'm so interested in this pursuit of flow and how that is different than the pursuit of goals. And it really stems from what I learned about burnout. And I'm going to talk about burnout generally because I've seen this in so many people. And the theory that I've drawn is that it always starts with a high capacity person. So, a high capacity person is like known for being able to produce, to create, to design, to just manipulate time and material to like produce a thing. Like they got it going on, they can make something happen. And that is seen by other people as uh, creating capital or really great, or it makes people feel really good. Like there's a positive effect that other people can recognize. And then the person is praised for doing that thing. They're compensated. They're, given resources, whatever it is, right? And how that like leads to step 3 burnout is that of the the safety in a human really relies on like how can you reliably get access to resources. And so if the thing that you have a high capacity for producing, for making, for creating is praised, it is oftentimes not the thing that that person actually wants to be doing or craves to be doing, is curious about, is there's a lot of unknown that are exciting to the person about it. Because what your brain prioritizes for safety is doing the thing that gets you the compensation, gets you the praise. And oftentimes that is removed from an authentic version of what the person wants to do, a desire to create, to make. And that creates the burnout because we put our life force and our energy into what our soul is saying is essentially like the wrong emphasis, the wrong thing. And burnout is a mechanism to dial back a person's energy in order to get it to refocus on the things that are exciting and interesting and intriguing and desirous for the soul. So when we aren't connected to that, when we are going after the compensation for stability, for creating this known version, like the secure version, like, if you do the thing, you'll get the thing, right? But when it's against what your soul is saying, like, hey, what about this? What about this? How have you, what if you can get away for a vacation and do this? Then when we don't prioritize those callings, those interests, that is what ultimately leads to burnout. And burnout is so painful that then we go unconscious just to make it bearable. And that's an important cycle to call out because then when we talk about like how do you chase flow, and maybe you're not even asking this question, you're just looking for like, how do I get excited to wake up in the morning? How do I make this career something more that's aligned with like the things that I'm interested in or the things that I'm like really good at or the things that just come naturally to me. When we talk about flow, it has typically been in this sense of like how to milk more productivity out of a person. And which is very aligned with maybe what your boss, what education, what all the institutions have wanted from you, because it's a really great way to extract capital, extract labor from a person. So when I talk about flow, I'm talking about the life experiences, the little moments kind of interlaced throughout like the common and the mundane, where your brain and your body and your soul just feel very alive and engaged in what you're doing. I get that sense of like time melting away where it's like you're working on something, you're engaged with something, with viewing something, with participating in something, being somewhere, being in the here and now, and time melts away and you feel just really engaged and excited. There's a vitality in that energy that a lot of us want to capture more of because we are prioritizing other things that aren't flow inducing or do not put us in a state of awe with nature. And that's a problem. So, if we want more excitement in our life, if we want to feel more lit up by the things that we are doing and happier and have more satisfaction and more ease in the enjoyment of flow, right? How does it work? What is flow for you, and what are your flow triggers, and how do you become somebody who really looks for opportunities to drop into a flow state, to be a flow chaser? And this is why I love having this conversation Monday mornings. All right, so the chasing flow section, I'll talk a little bit about a conceptual model about it just shows kind of the what I think the mechanics of like a flow state, right? I'll talk about your brain on flow and a little bit about like how to chase flow with the idea and the foundation that this is also individual. It's individual driven. I'll talk about creativity and adaptability, my theory around flow, and radical self acceptance and alignment as a flow trigger theory. All right. So, how I conceptualize flow is that it's this field of potentiality between a certain theoretical distance, right? So I'm going to take you to the center of your comfort zone where everything is known. There are no questions. You have complete certainty and safety in the here and now with where you are. You are not curious about anything. You are not, because everything is known. You would have to not know something to be curious. So that is the inside of our comfort zone. And as we travel, outwards to the maybe outer rims of our comfort zone, there become a lot more questions. What happens if? I wonder how that is connected. When this, what will happen? How about this? It's like the natural questions just start percolating, right? And then when we traverse further and further outside of our comfort zone, there becomes a lot more that is unknown, maybe a little bit terrifying. Maybe there's an element of danger. One of the classic reads on flow and written by a journalist who really studied the extreme sports of the 90s and the growth that was happening in that profession. Like just world record after world record after humans doing the impossible. This is, I'm talking about Stephen Kotler and his book Mapping Cloud Nine, where he explores like human potential and growth, the flow state, and psychedelics and like all the things. It's just a fabulous read, Mapping Cloud Nine by Stephen Kotler. And one of the things that he, in his writing and studying and reporting on these extreme athletes, is that when things became more and more dangerous, that's when these athletes just kind of like locked in the most. And just these complete feats of the human body were made when there was nothing known. They were so far on the outside of their comfort zone. This is like how I started to really conceptualize that, oh, flow happens when there's a lot of questions and there's a stake almost in like importance for your brain to really just lock into that moment to really either one protect itself because it takes a lot of concentration to do all these things, but it's like there's something else that is happening as you get further and further from your comfort zone, and that's where the field of flow potentiality happens, all the way up to dysregulation. And I used to think that dysregulation was this really dangerous place to go. Like you could get too dysregulated and then your life just falls apart and you're not making great decisions. And all dysregulation means, though, is the importance of coming back to the needs of the body to regulate it. So it can be a brief moment, it can be a prolonged rest and restorative session. But all dysregulation means is that the energy has to go from what's happening on the outside into regulating the body. So you need a sip of water is a form of self-regulation. Or needing this sip of water like thirst is a form of dysregulation because you are now focusing on the fact that you're thirsty to get you to take a drink of water. But that is like a natural kind of like bouncing or like a bumper if in bowling, when you bowl with the bumpers on, it's just a natural kind of like end to, capsize and protect the flow because if you go boom past your dysregulation signals, then bad things can happen. So what I believe flow is it's the exit from the absolute known of the inside of your comfort zone into this liminal space all the way until your attention gets brought back into regulating the body, which made it a lot easier to think about like, well, how do I get into flow? But the really fascinating thing is that as you go further and further from your comfort zone, the body responds with this cocktail of neurotransmitters. This is my favorite slide in this presentation. Your brain on flow. So, as a response to being in an environment where you are questioning things or where there are less knowns, like from the inside of your comfort zone, you are just naturally, like maybe you're at a sporting event, a concert, you're creating art, you're having an engaging conversation. The many ways that people might tap into this flow state as a result of what you are doing in your environment, your body is responding and it is producing this neurotransmitter surge. And within that neurotransmitter surge, you get dopamine, norepinephrine, endorphins, anandamines. And these are probably very familiar names because they are the names of the neurotransmitters that are adjusted when people take street drugs. Um, yeah. And what your body is producing naturally from being in this flow state, when they've done measurements, it is more than the street drug equivalent would like kill a person, but your body is just making this naturally as a way to protect itself and respond to this need for the flow state or this yeah, the needs of the flow state. So, how do you chase flow? And it's also individual because the things that get me into burnout are going to be the things that a person just maybe they love that. They're like, I could never be an accountant. And somebody is like counting numbers and making meanings out of patterns and adjusting things and recording things. That is my jam. Like the fact that we are so individual is what makes the flow state so elusive. And when it's elusive, we don't have as much access to it. So that's why something like this conceptual model of the potentiality of flow happens when you get further and further from the center of your comfort zone. It means that you are asking engaging questions, and the engaging questions for me and the engaging questions for somebody else are going to be completely different. And so that's why it needs to be uh, curated, and it also needs to come from you. It needs to be generated from your desires and interests. The best way um, that I have found to predictably and like make a study of having more flow experiences, like dropping into the flow state more. How do you chase flow? And this is the practice, and it comes from Dara Unk, and he is a channeler for Bashar. And he's come up with the best personal flow step by step guide on how to drop into it. And again, this is a practice that I believe will will have you chasing flow more. And it's just so fun. It's also very counterintuitive to what culture and work and all the expectations that people have on others would. But the practice of this is just fascinating. How much it will get you into like the flow state. So he says, first, act on passion. This is like, what are you interested in? People with ADHD, their brains have been described as interest-based machines, meaning like if they're not really interested and engaged with what they're doing, it's not happening likely. I've got one of those. Maybe you can understand that. But Bashar's formula really starts with like, what are you passionate about? What are you interested in? Because the things that you are interested in, you will have questions around. And when you start asking questions, you will naturally drift further and further from the inside of the comfort zone. That's the theory. All right, so act on passion first, and then two, act as far until the excitement wanes. This is what Bashar is describing as like the dysregulation zone. You'll naturally get pulled in other directions, like your focus will go to something else that is natural. Let it be like the natural flow of things. It's so interesting. We want to think of flow as this static state of like, I'm dropped in, I am in the flow state, I am going to be here and I'm going to write it out and, fight it until the end to stay in it, right? And but flow, it inherently in the word, like think about moving water. It is just coasting by, it's just drifting by, it's in a stream of consciousness and thought. And naturally, it'll peter out, it'll just wind down, right? And that is like the natural excitement wanes. It is not the static state. And if we can't let it wane, then we can't let it flow. Theory. All right. Three, act on passion until without assumption of outcome. When we think that we know exactly how the flow should maneuver, then there is less questions and we are pulled back into our comfort zone just because we were like, this is the way things need to be. And so when we are engaged in flow and doing the thing that we're really passionate and excited about or engaged in, and we have to have it be a certain way, then we are pinching off the opportunities to really flow with an idea and to be in that questioning state, the unknown state. The potential for things to happen becomes more limited when we assume it has to turn out like this way. The painting has to look like this. The the project needs to end up in this spot or else it's not successful. We really pinch off our access to other outcomes, other more magnificent, more expansive outcomes, other more creative or all the other things. We have to dive into the questions because we are excited and passionate about it. And we can't assume that we are going to know the outcome because then we limit the different outcomes that we can have. Four, no matter what is created, manifests, stay in a positive state. How many times when you are working on something, just somebody throws a monkey in like a wrench in it. And it's not, you have to pivot, you have to adjust, you have to go a different way. This is what creates a highly versatile, adaptable state is whatever happens, especially if it's like a challenge within the flow state, when you can just say, this is good. I'm going to work with this. This is life changing to the enjoyment of your work when you can be physically and mentally and spiritually invested in the questions and like what is happening and how it is developing. And when there's a challenge that comes along, just knowing that like it's a necessary part of it, like that's going to be part of the new creation that is made, and to stay in the positive state. Because if we were to really dwell on everything that happens as being bad, then we are going to become dysregulated. And when dysregulation happens, no problem, but the flow state is going to be temporarily suspended so that you can come back into regulation. And then in this flow state, we are given the opportunity for 5. Examine your beliefs and release fear. One of the things that flow state gives us access to is the ability to challenge the assumptions that we've made about how things are made or created or participated in. And when something challenging comes up, maybe our initial response is fear, and we can return to the questions or the intrigue or the flow and release or suspend our fear. And this is one of the things that makes flow, instead of just like chasing a goal, which I always felt so flat after just like chasing a goal. But chasing flow has been so rewarding on so many levels, because it's like, can you get to a place, a challenge, a flow state where you're really exploring and diving into these questions, and maybe something comes up that feels very intimidating or kind of scary, or like things aren't going to work out. And the ability to, in the safety of that like project or event, just being like, well, I'm here now, we're doing it, and releasing that fear. And I feel like this is where so much growth happens, when you chase flow. So that's Bashar's formula. It's definitely worth looking up some of his YouTube videos, just some really cool thoughts on what we are here and doing, and flow state and human potential, um, and regulation for sure. So, creativity and adaptability. I believe that as we accept challenges when we are in these flow states and these flow triggers, that it's not only like we are becoming more versatile and adaptable and resilient as people, but part of having a challenge introduced in the flow state is almost fuel for the flow state to continue. And what I think is happening is, if this line between the comfort zone and dysregulation is like the potential for flow, and let's say at the beginning of something, let's do a sporting event. So you go into a sporting event and you're rooting for your team. When you go there, maybe you're like slightly outside of your comfort zone, maybe mid, because maybe they're very closely matched. You don't know who's going to win. There's lots of questions like how many points are they going to score, whatever that is. And then you're watching the game and the other team scores points against your team. And now maybe you're feeling a little bit more towards dysregulation, because you're like, oh no, this is not good. And then I'm gonna go baseball. I didn't know which sport this was gonna go, but then the bases are loaded. Your team is 3 points behind. But if um, this next one is like a home run, then it's gonna be like 4 points. So you are more towards like the unknown. You are very outside of your comfort zone, right? And the challenge is introduced where there's like even more unknown is piled on top of that. That is actually keeping you in your flow state. That is the fuel. Because if you knew what was going to happen in the game, WWE wrestling, maybe you wouldn't be as engaged because more is known. Okay, this guy is obviously going to be the person that wins. I know what's going to happen here. There's probably no flow state. There's also probably no entertainment value in that. And you return to your comfort zone. Every time a challenge happens inside the flow state, you move further and further from your comfort zone because there's less and less that is known. It is not necessarily a granted that you can, that your team is going to win, that you are going to be able to accomplish this challenge. And so it forces you in. And then again, we get that neurotransmitter surge as a response to our environment. As we move more and more away from our comfort zone, our bodies and our brains are responding to that, and that is fuel the the flow state. So that's how like challenge actually like increases your duration or time inside the flow state as long as you don't become dysregulated. And then dysregulation and regulation, these are the things that are like the reason behind if you are a just consummate flows chaser, you would want to participate in as many self-regulating activities like yoga and adequate nutrition and hydration and mood stability and the things that make you feel safe. Like you'd really want to prop up your own resilience and ability to enter into the flow state, which means that you have a great ability to self regulate. And that should really come from, and your ability to let go of fears as you are in the flow state to travel further and further away from your comfort zone. A self-trust and self-acceptance really has to be the foundation of that. Like, this is how you chase more flow, is that you accept and you have more self-regulation and ability to access these flow states and to question things and to follow up on your passion. So I really believe that like this is the foundation of like how do you become a flow chaser and how you access the flow state is that you have to have an underlying confidence that whoever you are, your own stew of talents, experiences, and challenges is worthy of acceptance and support. This is the foundation of like, how do you have the confidence to go after the knowledge and the questions that you find the most interesting and you are the most passionate about. And that when we do find these flow states and we accept the challenges as flow triggers to be further and further engaged with life and our purpose and the reasons that we are here, like this expands capacity over time. And that is my theory. All right. Thank you so much for coming. Every week is a little bit different, and I will see you next week, hopefully.